Some years the garden produces so much of one crop you run out of ideas for what to do with it, whether it's zucchini, beets, or beans. But the solution doesn't always have to be to give it away or can a lifetime supply of pickled beets. Another solution is to find some new recipes, sweet and savory and delicious alternatives to the standard fare. From zucchini chocolate bread to beet brownies, let's explore 33 ways to turn whatever your garden handed you into your new favorite recipe. Beets baked into fudgy brownies that look completely ordinary, butternut squash blended so smooth into mac and cheese that it genuinely passes for extra creamy cheddar sauce. Today we are covering 33 garden-to-table recipes built around one idea. The best vegetable is the one your family never sees coming. Double chocolate zucchini bread. If you grow zucchini, and every gardener eventually grows too much zucchini, this recipe will become your most powerful tool. The secret is moisture. Zucchini is 95% water. When you shred it finely and squeeze out just a little of that liquid, it disappears into batter completely. No strings, no visible green pieces, no texture that gives it away. Here is how it works. Shred 2 medium zucchini, about 2 cups loosely packed, or roughly 240 grams. Give them one gentle squeeze in a clean kitchen towel, then fold them into your standard chocolate quick bread batter. Add 1/3 cup of dark cocoa powder and half a cup of chocolate chips, and what comes out of the oven is dense, fudgy, and deeply chocolatey. The zucchini adds fiber, potassium, and vitamin C to every single slice, and your kids will never taste it. Many Amish families in Lancaster County have used this method for generations during the August zucchini harvest, when the garden is so productive you are leaving bags of it on neighbors' porches. Now those bags become dessert. Beet brownies. Before you scroll past this one, hear it out. Raw beets have a strong earthy flavor. Roasted or boiled beets become something entirely different, sweet, smooth, and almost chocolatey on their own. When you puree 2 medium beets and fold that puree into a brownie batter, something remarkable happens. The beets replace nearly all the oil in the recipe. They add a deep, almost burgundy moisture that makes brownies fudgier than any butter version. And the color, it is dark and rich and looks exactly like a brownie is supposed to look. Use 1 cup of beet puree, about 240 milliliters, in place of the butter or oil your standard recipe calls for. Add 2/3 cup of cocoa powder, 2 eggs, half a cup of maple syrup, and 1 cup of all-purpose or whole wheat flour. Bake at 350 degrees or 175 Celsius for 22 minutes. These brownies carry folate, iron, and natural nitrates shown in modern research to support healthy circulation. The Amish have been finding ways to use every beet from the harvest for over 200 years. This one just happens to taste like dessert. Sweet potato chocolate chip cookies. Cookies have a reputation for being nutritionally empty. This version disagrees. Roast 1 large sweet potato until soft, then scoop out 1 cup of the flesh, about 240 grams. This puree replaces 1/3 of the butter in your favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe. The sweet potato adds natural sweetness, meaning you can reduce the white sugar by 1/4 without any loss of flavor. What you end up with is a softer, chewier cookie with a gentle warmth that people assume comes from vanilla. It actually comes from the beta-carotene-rich sweet potato your kids are happily eating without a single complaint. Modern nutritional research confirms that beta-carotene converts to vitamin A in the body, essential for growing children's eye health and immune function. Your kids do not need to know that. They just need to know the cookies are warm and the chips are melted. Honey cream cheese carrot cake. Store-bought carrot cake is often less carrot and more sugar than most people realize. The frosting alone on a typical bakery slice can contain over 40 grams of refined white sugar. This version starts with 3 large carrots, finely grated, about 2 cups, or 220 grams. The natural sweetness in fresh carrots means you can reduce the batter sugar by nearly 1/3. Add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of cardamom, and half a teaspoon of nutmeg, all spices many Amish communities have used in baked goods for generations. The frosting is where this recipe separates from anything on a grocery store shelf. 8 ounces of full-fat cream cheese, about 220 grams, whipped with 3 tablespoons of raw honey and 1 teaspoon of vanilla, no powdered sugar. No pile of white sweetener that makes your teeth ache, just rich, tangy cream cheese balanced with the floral sweetness of real honey. Many children who claim to hate vegetables will ask for a second piece of this cake. It is always satisfying to tell them what is actually in it. Chapter 2. Dinner Table Victories. Spaghetti Squash Bolognese. Most families spend $7 to $10 on a box of pasta per week. A single spaghetti squash from your garden, or about $2 at the store, makes enough noodles to feed a family of 4 for one full meal. Roast the squash at 400 degrees or 200 Celsius. Cut side down for 40 minutes. When you drag a fork across the flesh, it separates into long, golden strands that genuinely resemble spaghetti. Combine with a slow-cooked bolognese made from garden tomatoes, onions, garlic, and 1 pound or 450 grams of ground beef or venison if you hunt. The squash carries 3 times the potassium of regular pasta, twice the fiber, and a fraction of the simple carbohydrates. Modern nutrition research increasingly supports replacing refined grains with vegetable-based alternatives for stable blood sugar and long-term health. Many Amish families have roasted and eaten spaghetti squash for generations simply because it grew abundantly and tasted good. It turns out they were onto something much bigger than they realized. Butternut squash mac and cheese. This one works because of color. When you blend roasted butternut squash into a cheese sauce, it turns a shade of deep creamy gold that is indistinguishable from a rich cheddar sauce. Kids see yellow and think, cheese. They are not wrong. There is still plenty of real sharp cheddar in here, but the squash now makes up about a third of the sauce volume. Roast 1 medium butternut squash, scoop out 2 cups of flesh, about 480 grams, and blend it smooth with 1 cup or 240 milliliters of warm whole milk. Add 1.5 cups of the sharpest cheddar you can find, roughly 170 grams. Season with garlic powder, a pinch of dry mustard, and black pepper. The squash adds vitamin A, vitamin C, and potassium, nutrients most children are chronically short on. The flavor adds nothing alarming. What it adds is creaminess that butter alone cannot achieve. Lentil-boosted garden meat sauce. Red lentils are one of the oldest and most practical pantry staples in any traditional kitchen. The Amish have long understood that stretching meat with legumes is not a sign of poverty, it is a sign of wisdom.
Add half a cup of dry red lentils, about 100 grams, directly to your simmering meat sauce. They dissolve completely within 20 minutes, adding body and texture that many people confuse for extra ground beef. They have virtually no flavor of their own. They absorb whatever the sauce is made of.
The result is a sauce with 25% less meat cost and nearly double the protein and fiber per serving. A pound of red lentils costs about $1.50 and replaces $2 to $3 worth of meat in every batch. Modern research consistently shows that legume consumption is associated with lower inflammation, better gut health, and reduced cardiovascular risk. The Amish just called it, making it go further. Cauliflower Alfredo. Traditional Alfredo sauce is butter, cream, and Parmesan, all things worth loving in moderation. This version keeps the Parmesan and swaps the butter and cream for something your garden can provide. Steam 1 full head of cauliflower, about 600 grams, until completely tender. Blend it with 3/4 of a cup or 180 milliliters of reserved pasta water until silky smooth. Add half a cup or about 50 grams of freshly grated Parmesan and 2 cloves of roasted garlic. What comes out of the blender is a creamy, ivory-colored sauce that coats pasta beautifully and tastes richly savory. The cauliflower is completely undetectable. What is detectable is that the sauce has 1/4 of the calories of traditional Alfredo and delivers more vitamin C per serving than an orange. This is a meal that feels indulgent and quietly isn't. That is the homestead philosophy in a nutshell. Abundance should look and taste like abundance. It does not need to announce what it is made of. Chapter 3. The Sugar Rebellion. Date-sweetened banana bread. Bananas at peak ripeness, the ones with deep brown spots that nobody wants to eat fresh, are among the most useful things in any kitchen. Their natural sugars are intensely concentrated, their moisture is perfect for quick breads, and they have enough sweetness to dramatically reduce the need for any added sugar. Now combine that with dates. Medjool dates, when soaked in warm water for 15 minutes and then blended smooth, become a thick, caramel-like paste with a natural sweetness that Amish and Mennonite communities across the Midwest have used as a sugar alternative for generations. Use 8 large dates, about 160 grams, blended smooth with 2 very ripe bananas as your entire sweetener. Add 2 cups or 250 grams of whole wheat flour, 2 eggs, half a cup or 120 milliliters of coconut oil, and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. The result is a loaf that is genuinely sweet, dense, and satisfying without a single gram of refined white sugar. Children who eat this regularly are consuming more potassium, fiber, and magnesium than any grocery store banana bread ever delivered. Molasses oat cookies. If there is one sweetener that many Amish communities have used longer and more consistently than any other, it is molasses. Blackstrap molasses is what remains after most of the refined sugar has been extracted from sugarcane. That means it contains everything the refining process left behind: iron, calcium, potassium, and B vitamins. A single tablespoon of blackstrap molasses contains as much iron as 3 ounces of beef. For the cookies, combine 1 cup or 90 grams of old-fashioned rolled oats with half a cup or 60 grams of whole wheat flour, a quarter cup or 80 grams of blackstrap molasses, 1 egg, 3 tablespoons of softened butter, and 1 teaspoon each of cinnamon and ginger. These cookies have a deep, warm, slightly spicy flavor that children tend to love once they taste them. They are chewy, satisfying, and carry a genuinely impressive nutritional profile for a cookie. In many Amish homes, these have been a lunchbox staple for over a century. No-bake honey peanut butter oat balls. 5 ingredients, no oven, ready in 15 minutes, costs about 80 cents to make a batch of 20. These are the homestead version of an energy bar, and they are far better than anything sold in a wrapper at the store. Combine 1 cup or 90 grams of old-fashioned oats with half a cup or 130 grams of natural peanut butter, 3 tablespoons of raw honey, a quarter cup or 45 grams of ground flaxseed, and a handful of mini chocolate chips. Mix until everything holds together. Roll into small balls and refrigerate for 30 minutes. The oats provide sustained energy. The peanut butter delivers protein. The flaxseed adds omega-3 fatty acids. The honey holds it together and carries antimicrobial properties that keep these fresh in the refrigerator for up to 2 weeks. Amish children have grown up eating versions of this for generations, just without the flaxseed and chocolate chips. Modern families can upgrade the nutrition and keep the simplicity. Apple butter oatmeal bars. Apple butter, made from the fall harvest and preserved in jars for winter, is one of the oldest and most productive things you can do with an apple surplus. And once you have a shelf of it, it becomes one of the most versatile natural sweeteners in your pantry. For these bars, press a base of 1.5 cups or 135 grams of oats mixed with 3 tablespoons of melted butter and 2 tablespoons of maple syrup into a greased 8x8 pan. Spread a thick layer of apple butter, about half a cup or 120 grams, across the base. Cover with a crumble of the same oat mixture. Bake at 350 degrees or 175 Celsius for 25 minutes. The apple butter caramelizes and becomes jammy and intensely flavored. The bars hold their shape well, travel easily in a lunchbox, and contain no refined sweetener, just the natural sugars from apples cooked low and slow the traditional way. Homemade apple butter costs roughly 20 cents per jar when made from a backyard or pick-your-own harvest. A full batch of bars costs less than $1.
Chapter 4. Sneaky Fermented Foods. Spinach sourdough pancakes. Sourdough discard. The portion of starter you remove before each feeding is one of the most underused resources in any home baker's kitchen. It adds complex, tangy flavor. It is already fermented and partially pre-digested, and it works beautifully in pancake batter. Now add spinach. Blend 1 cup or 30 grams of fresh spinach with 3/4 of a cup or 180 milliliters of milk until completely smooth. The liquid turns a vivid, brilliant green. Add this to your sourdough discard pancake batter along with 1 egg and a tablespoon of melted butter. The pancakes come out a beautiful pale green, and here is the thing. Children who would refuse to eat spinach on a plate will happily eat green pancakes. They are fun. They look like something from a story. You can call them garden pancakes or forest flapjacks or whatever your family lands on. 1 serving delivers a full day's worth of vitamin K and a significant dose of iron from the spinach, along with the probiotic benefits of the fermented sourdough base. The homestead understanding that nothing from the garden goes to waste has never tasted quite this interesting. Probiotic yogurt popsicles. Store-bought popsicles are primarily high-fructose corn syrup, food coloring, and water. A homemade version costs a fraction of the price, takes 10 minutes to assemble, and delivers something the store version never could: live probiotic cultures from real fermented yogurt. Blend 1.5 cups or 360 milliliters of full-fat plain yogurt with 1 cup or 150 grams of frozen or fresh garden strawberries or raspberries, 2 tablespoons of raw honey, and half a teaspoon of vanilla. Pour into popsicle molds and freeze for 4 to 6 hours. These popsicles cost roughly 20 cents each to make. A box of name-brand popsicles from the store runs $3 to $4 for 6. The probiotic cultures in the yogurt support gut health and immune function in ways that processed frozen treats simply cannot. Many traditional families preserved summer fruit in cultured dairy products specifically for this reason. The fermentation extended shelf life and improved nutrition at the same time. This is that same principle, just in a shape that fits in a small hand. Fermented garden ketchup. Commercially produced ketchup contains about 5 grams of high-fructose corn syrup per tablespoon. Over a summer of burgers and sweet potato fries, that adds up to a significant amount of refined sweetener for a growing child. Fermented ketchup swaps all of that for tomatoes from your garden, natural sweetness from dates or a small amount of honey, and a fermentation process that adds live probiotic cultures to a condiment your family already reaches for. Blend 2 cups or 450 grams of roasted garden tomatoes with 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, 1 tablespoon of raw honey, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. Stir in 1 tablespoon of whey from plain yogurt to begin the fermentation. Jar it and leave it at room temperature for 2 days before refrigerating. The result is deeply tomato-flavored, tangy, slightly sweet, and alive with beneficial bacteria. A single batch from a small tomato surplus lasts 2 to 3 weeks refrigerated and costs about 40 cents to make. Hidden veggie sourdough loaf. Standard sandwich bread from the store contains very little nutrition, enriched flour, a small amount of oil, sugar, and preservatives. The sourdough fermentation process changes the entire nutritional equation, and when you add one more ingredient, the loaf becomes something genuinely impressive. Knead 2 tablespoons of beet powder, or the juice from 2 roasted beets, into your standard sourdough loaf just before shaping. The bread takes on a deep rose color that children often find exciting rather than suspicious. The beet flavor is completely absent once baked. Alternatively, blend 1 cup or 30 grams of raw spinach into your water before mixing the dough. The bread bakes to a subtle green-gray that sourdough lovers hardly notice. Both versions deliver the full probiotic and digestive benefits of long-fermented sourdough, plus the nutritional benefits of whichever vegetable you choose to add. And because the fermentation process breaks down phytic acid in the flour, the iron and zinc in the bread become more bioavailable than in any commercial loaf. Real bread takes time. Modern science is now explaining exactly why that time matters so much. Chapter 5. The Protein Harvest. Bone broth mac and cheese. Every time you roast a chicken or purchase a whole bird and break it down yourself, you are sitting on the beginning of one of the most nutrient-dense foods in any traditional kitchen. Simmer the carcass with onion, celery, carrots, and a splash of apple cider vinegar in a large pot covered with water for 12 to 24 hours. Strain and cool. What you have is a golden, gelatin-rich bone broth that has been central to homestead cooking for generations and is now confirmed by modern research to support joint health, gut lining integrity, and collagen production. Use 2 cups or 480 milliliters of this homemade broth as the base liquid for your mac and cheese sauce. Replace the milk entirely. The broth adds a depth of savory flavor that lifts the whole dish and quietly delivers glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline, the amino acids your children's growing connective tissue actually needs. This mac and cheese costs almost nothing per serving when built on a carcass that most people throw away. White bean chocolate chip cookies. This one will surprise you. Drain and rinse 1 can, about 1½ cups or 250 grams of white cannellini beans. Blend them completely smooth. They become a pale, neutral paste with almost no flavor on their own. Add 2 tablespoons of almond butter, a 1/4 cup or 80 grams of honey, 1 egg, a teaspoon of vanilla, half a teaspoon of baking powder, and half a cup or 90 grams of chocolate chips. Mix and scoop onto a baking sheet. Bake at 350 degrees or 175 Celsius for 12 minutes. These cookies contain no flour, they are naturally gluten-free, and each cookie delivers 3 grams of protein and 2 grams of fiber from a bean that nobody can taste. The homestead tradition of finding protein wherever the land provides it, dried beans, preserved meats, eggs from the coop, is one of the most enduring strengths of that way of living. This recipe fits squarely in that tradition. Red lentil tomato soup. A garden tomato surplus happens every August without fail. The question is always what to do with all of them before they go soft. This soup solves that problem and feeds a family for under $2. Roast 3 pounds, or about 1.5 kilograms, of garden tomatoes alongside 1 head of garlic and 2 onions at 400 degrees or 200 Celsius for 45 minutes. Blend smooth and transfer to a pot. Add half a cup or 100 grams of dry red lentils and 2 cups or 480 milliliters of homemade broth or water. Simmer for 20 minutes. The lentils dissolve completely. The soup thickens into a rich velvety texture that could pass for a cream soup without any cream at all. Each bowl delivers over 10 grams of plant protein and more than half the daily fiber most children need. Season with smoked paprika, a pinch of cayenne, and a swirl of olive oil. Serve with sourdough toast. This is the kind of meal that costs almost nothing, fills a family completely, and leaves everyone satisfied in a way that processed food rarely does. Garden egg frittata pizza. Eggs from a backyard flock are among the most nutritious and affordable foods a family can produce. A dozen eggs from a well-fed backyard hen contain omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, and choline at levels that commercially produced eggs simply cannot match. The frittata pizza takes 6 eggs, beaten with a quarter cup or 60 milliliters of whole milk, and cooks them in a cast iron skillet until just set on the bottom. Then top with whatever the garden is producing: sliced cherry tomatoes, thinly sliced zucchini, fresh basil, crumbled goat cheese or sharp cheddar, and transfer the skillet to a 400-degree or 200 Celsius oven for 8 minutes. What comes out looks and eats like a thin-crust pizza. Kids who will not eat a vegetable side dish will pull slices of this happily. The Amish have always used cast iron and eggs as the foundation of quick, filling, flexible meals. The frittata format lets you use exactly what the garden gives you that day, making every version slightly different, slightly seasonal, and always fresh. Chapter 6. The Morning Staples. Homestead granola. Most store-bought granola contains almost as much sugar per serving as a bowl of frosted cereal. Read the label on a popular brand, and you will often find corn syrup, refined vegetable oil, and natural flavors listed before you get to the oats. The Amish approach to a morning staple like this is predictably straightforward. You know exactly what went into it because you made it yourself, and it costs roughly a third of what the grocery store charges per ounce. Here is the base recipe. Combine 3 cups or 270 grams of old-fashioned rolled oats with 1 cup or 140 grams of raw mixed nuts, roughly chopped. In a separate bowl, whisk together a third of a cup or 110 grams of raw honey, a quarter cup or 60 milliliters of melted coconut oil, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of vanilla, and a generous pinch of sea salt. Pour the honey mixture over the oats and nuts. Toss until everything is evenly coated. Spread onto a parchment-lined baking sheet in one thin, even layer. Bake at 300 degrees or 150 Celsius for 25 minutes. Do not stir it. Leaving it undisturbed during baking is what creates those big, satisfying clusters. Let it cool completely on the pan before breaking it apart. This step is what many first-time granola makers skip, and it is the difference between clumped, crunchy clusters and a loose pile of toasted oats. Add a cup or 160 grams of dried fruit, raisins, cranberries, chopped dates, after baking, never before. One batch costs about $2.50 to make and fills a large mason jar that keeps for 3 weeks on the shelf. A name brand equivalent runs $7 to $9 for the same amount. This is one of those recipes where the homestead math is impossible to argue with. Honey peanut butter granola bars. Once you have your granola base, the protein bar is a short step away. Granola bars from the store are almost universally held together with corn syrup and coated in a chocolate-flavored compound that contains very little real chocolate. They are engineered to have a long shelf life and a moderate amount of sweetness, not to actually fuel a working family. This version uses 2 cups, or 180 grams, of the homemade granola you just made, combined with half a cup, or 130 grams, of natural peanut butter, a third of a cup, or 110 grams, of raw honey, 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed, and a quarter cup, or 45 grams, of sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds from your garden harvest. Warm the peanut butter and honey together gently, just enough to make them pourable. Stir in the granola, seeds, and flaxseed until everything is thoroughly combined. Press the mixture firmly into a parchment-lined 8x8 pan, or 20 by 20 centimeters. Press it hard. The firmness of your pressing determines whether you get bars or crumble. Refrigerate for 2 hours minimum. Slice into 8 bars. Store in the refrigerator for up to 2 weeks, or freeze individually wrapped for up to 3 months. Each bar costs roughly 30 cents to make. A box of 8 name-brand protein bars runs $8 to $12 at most grocery stores. The savings over a school year alone are significant. And these bars carry real protein from the peanut butter, real fiber from the oats and flaxseed, and real omega-3s from the seeds, not a supplement panel designed to approximate nutrition. Many families in traditional homesteading communities have understood for generations that the most reliable snack is one you made yourself from ingredients you grew or sourced locally. The granola bar is a modern format, but the philosophy is completely unchanged. Wouterbaaltesimbiums unind. The Homestead Pancake, 4 seasons, 1 batter. A good pancake batter is one of the most flexible tools in a from-scratch kitchen. The base never changes. What changes is what your garden is producing that week. Start with the master batter. 1½ cups, or 190 grams, of whole wheat flour, or a blend of half whole wheat and half all-purpose. 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Half a teaspoon of sea salt. 1 tablespoon of maple syrup or raw honey. 2 eggs. 1 cup or 240 milliliters of whole milk or buttermilk, 2 tablespoons of melted butter or coconut oil. Stir until just combined. Do not overmix. A few lumps in pancake batter are a sign of restraint, and restraint here is rewarded with tender pancakes. Now here is where the seasons take over. In the spring, fold in 3/4 of a cup or 110 grams of fresh rhubarb, finely diced, along with 1 tablespoon of extra honey to balance the tartness. Rhubarb pancakes have a jammy, bright, slightly tart flavor that feels like the garden just woke up. Top with a spoonful of strawberry jam from last year's preserve shelf. In summer, stir in 1 medium zucchini, finely shredded and lightly squeezed, about 3/4 of a cup or 90 grams, along with half a cup or 90 grams of fresh blueberries or whatever berry is ripe. The zucchini vanishes completely into the batter. The berries burst when they hit the hot pan. These are the pancakes that make children forget entirely that a vegetable is involved. In fall, add 3/4 of a cup or 180 milliliters of homemade pumpkin puree, roasted, scraped, and blended from a small sugar pumpkin. Add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ginger, a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and a pinch of clove. These are the pancakes that make the whole house smell like the best version of October. Serve with a drizzle of warmed apple butter from the fall preserve shelf and a dusting of cinnamon. In winter, fold in half a cup or 60 grams of shredded baking apple, 1 medium apple, unpeeled, finely grated, plus a teaspoon of cinnamon and a tablespoon of molasses added directly to the wet ingredients. The molasses deepens the batter color and adds that warm, slightly smoky sweetness that pairs perfectly with cold mornings. Top with plain yogurt and a spoonful of honey instead of syrup. 1 batter, 4 seasons, 12 months of reasons to make breakfast at home. The cost per serving for any of these versions runs between 20 and 40 cents, depending on what your garden provides. A short stack at a restaurant runs $4 to $8. The homestead math speaks for itself. The garden frittata. 3 seasonal builds. The frittata is the most honest recipe in this entire video. It asks nothing more of you than eggs and whatever the garden gave you today. Many Amish households operate by the principle that a full cast iron skillet and a carton of backyard eggs can carry a family through almost any meal of the day. The frittata is breakfast, lunch, or dinner, depending entirely on when you make it and who you tell. The base never changes. 8 large eggs, beaten together with a 1/4 cup or 60 milliliters of whole milk, half a teaspoon of sea salt, and a crack of black pepper. Heat 2 tablespoons of butter in a 10-inch or 25-centimeter cast iron skillet over medium heat. Pour in the egg mixture and let it set on the bottom about 3 minutes without stirring. Then add your filling and transfer the skillet to a 400-degree or 200 Celsius oven for 8 to 10 minutes until the center is just set. Now the 3 seasonal builds. In spring and early summer, thin asparagus spears laid across the top, a handful of fresh chives, and 2 ounces or about 60 grams of crumbled goat cheese. The asparagus roasts lightly in the oven and caramelizes at the tips. The goat cheese melts into tangy, creamy pockets. This version takes 15 minutes from garden to table. In high summer, slice 1 small zucchini thin and arrange it across the egg base. Add a handful of halved cherry tomatoes and a generous layer of fresh basil leaves. Scatter half a cup or about 50 grams of shredded sharp cheddar across the top. The tomatoes collapse and concentrate their sweetness in the heat. The basil perfumes the whole kitchen. This is summer in a cast iron skillet. In fall and winter, caramelize 1 large onion in the butter before adding the eggs. This takes 20 minutes, but is worth every one of them. Fold in half a cup, or about 75 grams of roasted butternut squash cubes, and scatter fresh thyme across the top, along with a half cup, or 50 grams of Gruyere or aged cheddar. This version is deep and savory and warming in the way that only slow-cooked onions can deliver. All 3 versions cost between 80 cents and $1.50 to make from a full backyard egg production and a modest garden. A comparable dish at a weekend brunch cafe runs $12 to $18. The frittata does not care what season it is or what your refrigerator looks like. It just asks you to crack some eggs and look out the back window at what the garden has today. Chapter 7. Preserves Nobody Sees Coming. Every homesteader knows strawberry preserves. Everyone has made blueberry jam at least once. Apple butter is practically a rite of passage. But the Amish preserve everything. And some of the most remarkable jars on a traditional homestead shelf are the ones that raise an eyebrow before you even open them. These next 8 preserves are built from garden ingredients most people overlook entirely or throw away without a second thought. Some of them will taste like things that should not be possible from the plants they came from. That is the point. Corn cob jelly. When you finish cutting corn off the cob at the peak of summer harvest, most people throw the bare cobs directly in the compost. Many Amish families in Lancaster County have never done that, because those bare cobs still have something left to give. Place 12 stripped cobs in a large pot. Cover completely with cold water, about 3 quarts, or roughly 3 liters. Bring to a boil and simmer for 30 minutes. The water pulls a pale golden, faintly sweet, starchy liquid from the cob that smells almost like honey. Strain it carefully. You should have about 4 cups, or roughly 1 liter of liquid. For every 2 cups of corn cob liquid, add 1½ cups, about 300 grams of sugar and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Bring to a hard boil. Add 1 packet of liquid pectin and boil hard for 1 full minute. Ladle into sterilized jars and process in a water bath for 10 minutes. The finished jelly is pale gold, mildly sweet, and remarkably floral. Many people describe it as close to honey. It spreads on biscuits, pairs with sharp cheddar, and uses an ingredient that was headed for the compost pile. From 12 cobs that cost nothing extra, you get 4 to 5 half-pint jars of jelly that would sell for $6 each at a farmer's market. Zero waste, total value from nothing. That is Amish homesteading at its finest. Zucchini pineapple preserves. This one requires a small act of faith before you taste it. Shred 4 cups, or about 480 grams, of peeled, seeded zucchini on the coarse side of your box grater. Combine with 1 20-ounce can, or about 560 grams, of crushed pineapple in its own juice, 3/4 of a cup, or 150 grams of sugar, and 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. Simmer over medium heat for 45 minutes, stirring occasionally until the mixture thickens and the zucchini becomes completely translucent. Now taste it. What you are eating tastes unmistakably like pineapple jam. The zucchini absorbs the pineapple juice during cooking and transforms entirely. Its flavor disappears, its texture softens into the exact consistency of fruit preserves, and the color turns a warm, tropical gold. This preserve has been a well-kept secret in Amish and Mennonite canning circles for generations. It was born from the practical problem every summer gardener faces: far too much zucchini and nowhere to put it. The answer turned out to be a preserve that tastes nothing like zucchini and everything like something you should be paying for. Ladle into sterilized half-pint jars and process for 10 minutes. Serve on toast and watch the reaction when you reveal what it is actually made from. Spiced tomato jam. If you have ever grown tomatoes, you have had weeks in August where the harvest outpaces everything you can reasonably use. This jam is the answer to that problem that most people never consider. Tomatoes have one of the highest natural glutamate contents of any fruit in the garden. That same compound that makes them deeply savory in a pasta sauce. When you cook them low and slow with sugar and warm spices, it transitions into something entirely different. The result is a sweet, deeply flavored jam with a complexity that fruit preserves rarely achieve. Core and roughly chop 3 pounds, or 1.5 kilograms, of ripe garden tomatoes. No need to peel. Combine in a heavy pot with 1.5 cups, or 300 grams of sugar, 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ground ginger, a 1/4 teaspoon of clove, and a pinch of sea salt. Bring to a boil. Then reduce and simmer uncovered for 1 hour to 1.5 hours, stirring regularly until the mixture reduces by half and reaches a thick, jammy consistency. The color deepens from bright red to a dark, glossy ruby. The flavor is sweet up front and savory at the finish, a combination that pairs astonishingly well with grilled meats, sharp cheese, sourdough toast, or as a glaze on roast chicken. Modern food science confirms that the lycopene in tomatoes, one of the most studied antioxidants in plant foods, actually increases in concentration and bioavailability when cooked. Long, slow cooking is not diminishing the nutrition in this jam, it is concentrating it. Process in sterilized half-pint jars for 15 minutes. This is one of those preserves that changes how people think about what a jam can be. Watermelon rind preserves. Every summer, the part of the watermelon that takes the most work to grow gets thrown away first. In traditional Amish and Mennonite households, and across generations of Southern and Appalachian homesteaders, the rind was never wasted. It was cooked into a preserve that many people consider the most elegant thing to come out of a summer garden. Remove the green outer skin and the pink inner flesh. What remains is the white rind. Cut it into 1-inch cubes, or about 2.5 centimeter pieces. You need 4 cups, or about 500 grams. Soak the cubes overnight in a solution of 1 tablespoon of sea salt dissolved in 4 cups of cold water. This firms the texture and draws out excess moisture. Drain and rinse. Combine in a pot with 2 cups, or 400 grams of sugar, 1 cup, or 240 milliliters of water, the juice and zest of 2 lemons, and 1 2-inch piece of fresh ginger, peeled and thinly sliced. Simmer on low heat for 1.5 hours until the rind becomes translucent and the syrup thickens to a light, fragrant glaze. The finished preserves are beautiful. The rind turns from white to a glowing, candied amber. The texture is tender with just enough give. The ginger and lemon brightness cuts through the sweetness in a way that makes every bite interesting. Process in sterilized half-pint jars for 10 minutes. Serve alongside cured meats, aged cheese, or on a sourdough biscuit. This is the preserve that stops conversations at the table when you explain what it is made from. Carrot cake jam. There is a reason carrot cake is one of the most universally loved desserts. warm spice, natural sweetness, a texture that borders on moist without being heavy. This jam bottles all of that and puts it on a shelf. Peel and finely shred 3 cups, about 330 grams, of fresh garden carrots. Combine in a heavy pot with 1 cup or about 220 grams of crushed pineapple with juice, the juice and zest of 1 large orange, 3 cups or 600 grams of sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of nutmeg, and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cardamom. Bring to a full rolling boil, stirring constantly, then add 1 packet of liquid pectin. Return to a hard boil and hold for 1 full minute. Remove from heat. The jam sets to a thick, richly spiced orange gold spread that smells exactly like pulling a carrot cake from the oven. This jam works on buttered toast, stirred into plain yogurt, swirled into cream cheese on a bagel, or layered inside a simple white cake as a filling. Kids who resist eating raw carrots routinely eat this without prompting. Process in sterilized half-pint jars for 10 minutes. Carrots are one of the most abundant and affordable fall garden crops. This is one of the finest things you can do with that harvest. Butternut squash butter. Apple butter is one of the great slow-cooked traditions of the Amish harvest season. The same process, low heat, long time, warm spices, works with almost any dense, sweet flesh vegetable from your garden. Butternut squash makes a butter that is richer, more savory sweet, and more nutritionally dense than the apple version. And the fall garden often produces far more squash than a family can roast and eat before its soft spots. Roast 2 large butternut squash, halved and face down, at 400 degrees or 200 Celsius for 50 minutes until the flesh is completely tender. Scoop out 6 cups, or about 1.5 kilograms, of the flesh and transfer to a heavy-bottomed pot or slow cooker. Add half a cup or 100 grams of brown sugar or coconut sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ginger, a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, a pinch of clove, the juice of 1 lemon, and half a teaspoon of sea salt. Cook on low heat for 2 to 3 hours in a slow cooker with the lid cracked, or simmer uncovered on the stovetop for 90 minutes, stirring every 20 minutes. The squash butter is done when it holds a thick mound on a cold spoon and the color has deepened from pale orange to a rich, burnished amber. Use an immersion blender for a silky finish. Process in sterilized half-pint jars for 15 minutes. 1 large squash harvest makes 12 to 15 jars of squash butter that keep shelf-stable for up to 1 year. A jar of squash butter on a November morning, spread on warm sourdough toast with a cup of something hot, is one of those simple homestead pleasures that is genuinely difficult to improve on. Beet and orange marmalade. Every jar of this marmalade looks like it came from a specialty food shop. The color is an extraordinary deep ruby, almost jewel-like against the light. It is the most visually striking preserve most people will ever make from their own garden. Roast 4 medium beets, about 600 grams, wrapped in foil at 400 degrees or 200 Celsius for 60 minutes. Cool, peel, and grate coarsely. You need about 2.5 cups or roughly 300 grams of grated roasted beet. Combine in a pot with the juice and zest of 3 large oranges, about 1 cup or 240 milliliters of juice total, 2 cups or 400 grams of sugar, and 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Bring to a boil, then simmer over medium heat for 30 to 40 minutes, stirring frequently until the mixture thickens and reaches the gel point. A small amount dropped on a cold plate should wrinkle when pushed with a finger. The beet sweetness and the orange brightness work together in a way that neither achieves alone. The citrus lifts the earthiness of the beet entirely. What remains is something warm, fruity, deeply flavorful, and unlike anything in the standard preserve repertoire. Modern research shows that the betalain pigments responsible for that extraordinary color are among the most potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory compounds found in any plant food studied to date. Traditional beet-growing communities across Eastern Europe and the American plain communities have used beets medicinally for centuries. Now we understand exactly why. Process in sterilized half-pint jars for 10 minutes. This marmalade on a cheese board will generate more questions than anything else on the table. Basil jelly. Midsummer basil grows faster than most families can eat it. You make pesto, you dry some, You add it to everything, and still, there is always more basil. Herb jellies are one of the oldest preservation traditions in European and early American homesteading, and one of the most forgotten. The method is simple. The result is something that genuinely surprises people the first time they taste it. Pack 2 cups, or about 80 grams, of fresh basil leaves, firmly pressed, into a heat-safe bowl. Pour over 2.5 cups, or 600 milliliters, of boiling water. Let steep for 20 minutes. The water turns a pale golden green and fills with the volatile aromatic oils from the basil. Strain carefully, pressing all the liquid from the leaves. You need 2 cups, or 480 milliliters, of this basil infusion. Combine with 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 3.5 cups, or 700 grams of sugar, and the contents of 1 packet of liquid pectin. Bring to a hard boil and hold for 1 full minute. Pour immediately into sterilized half-pint jars and process for 10 minutes. The jelly sets to a clear pale gold with a green tint that intensifies as it cools. The flavor is floral, peppery, faintly sweet, and completely unexpected in a preserve. It pairs with goat cheese on crackers, melts over grilled chicken, dresses a charcuterie board, and works as a glaze on pork tenderloin in a way that needs no explanation once someone tastes it. 1 large basil plant at peak summer can produce enough leaves for 2 to 3 batches of jelly. A half-pint jar sells at farmers markets for $8 to $12. The ingredient cost from your garden is essentially zero. When someone tells you that herbs are only worth growing for cooking, this is your answer. Closing. 33 recipes across 7 chapters, and what connects every single one of them is the same philosophy that has guided homesteading families for generations. Nothing from the garden goes to waste. The cob you stripped, the rind you peeled, the zucchini that outgrew its welcome, the basil that is coming in faster than you can use it. All of it has a jar it belongs in, a batter it can disappear into, a family meal it can make better if you know what to do with it. Start with one thing this week. The granola if you want something simple. The zucchini pineapple preserves if you have a surplus and want to see something genuinely surprising happen. The pumpkin pancakes the first cool Saturday of fall. The frittata tonight with whatever 3 things are growing in your garden right now. You do not need all 33 at once. One recipe is how it always starts. The video description has a complete downloadable guide with all 33 recipes, every measurement, every variation, and the full seasonal pancake and frittata charts, free to grab and print for your kitchen. Until next time, keep it frugal, keep it simple, and keep it homemade.